Hi, my name is Erin McLean. I am the Chief Marketing Officer here at eSentire, and today I am joined by our leader in growth marketing, Kristin Kelly. Thanks for being here, Kristin.
I'm super excited. This is our first podcast in the office, which is amazing to be sitting here with you in Waterloo.
You are the special chosen person to go first
I'm
here
so excited.
at Waterloo HQ.
I love it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, the reason that we wanted to sit down and chat with you is because you have been recognized as ILTA's, or one of ILTA's professionals to watch.
Yeah.
So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And then when I heard about this, I was like, well, hold on. It's pretty rare to see someone in a non-technical position in a cybersecurity field being recognized. And I just think this is such a unique opportunity to have people understand a little bit about the journey you've taken as a marketer, as you've grown your career here at eSentire, and as you've built a relationship with this incredible organization in ILTA that helps serve legal firms all around the world. So that's why we're here today.
Yeah,
So
super excited.
Good. Well, let's jump in and hear a little bit about you and your journey here.
Yeah.
So give us the background. Give us like the Kristin Kelly 101. Tell us a little bit about where you've come from and what led you to eSentire.
Yeah, so kind of my background, I started at Ryerson University, now known as Toronto Metropolitan University. So I studied in a non-technical background. I studied professional communication and marketing. And I remember for a bit people kind of always being like, oh, are you sure going into communications and marketing? Are you going to get a job after? And I really kind of always had it. Yeah, I was like, of course I'm going to get a job after. Of course I'm going to prove you wrong. So that's always kind of been in my DNA to always be someone that's like continuously trying to challenge myself to do something that's out of the box, diving into something that's a bit more complicated. And I've always kind of wanted to get into something that was more technical after school. So I went to Ryerson while I was in school. I also worked at a PR agency pretty much almost full time while being in school, while doing extracurriculars. So that kind of started my career off and kind of having that balance of how do I balance doing things that I love while also doing something that's professional and important to me. So from there, I graduated during the pandemic in 2020. I was still at the PR firm, but I took a break and was trying to figure out kind of what I wanted to do for my career. And it was funny because during the pandemic, I took this really intense kind of career quiz. And the top thing that came back was to become a lawyer. So for a bit, I was like, you know what, maybe I should look into becoming a lawyer. Maybe I should switch my path. And if this is something that I really meant to do. So I took a step back. I realized, okay, law school is going to be really expensive and it's going to be a lot of time. And am I ready to kind of give that up right now? So in that time that I took off, I went back more so into marketing, started working at the Chamber of Commerce in Waterloo. And then I landed on the opportunity at eSentire. And it was something that I think when I joined, I had major imposter syndrome because I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so young. Even looking at the job posting, like I do not even have this many years of experience to be on this marketing team. But Rob from our team was the one who referred me and was kind of like, take a chance, apply. So I applied, I interviewed, I got the job, and then I've been at eSentire ever since, and it's been great.
Okay, well, there are so many places. Okay, so we're going to pause for a minute here because I'm curious. You talk about being, wanting to challenge yourself, knowing that you're juggling and managing your time differently as you're kind of growing up and getting to figure out what it is exactly that you wanted to do. Were you an athlete growing up? Were you an avid reader? Like, what was it in like your younger years that you think inspired you to be like, I want to do communications. I want to do marketing. What led you to pursue that path in the first place?
So I wasn't someone who was really big into sports. I was an equestrian, so I used to horseback ride competitively for a little bit. So my biggest thing, I think, in high school, especially towards applying to university, was navigating, okay, I'm not a sports person, so what can I do to kind of stand out and still show that I'm involved?
The equestrians out there are so offended right now.
Yeah,
you're like, it's not a sport. It is fully an Olympic sport.
It's fully a sport. My parents are like, this is too much money. We need to stop. You're not going to the Olympics for equestrian, so let's end it there. So then I started looking at, okay, what are different ways that I can get involved? That doesn't mean you need to be someone who's like necessarily, I was never in the arts either. I'm not a theater person. Okay. So it was kind of navigating that intersection of like, how can you still be involved as someone who has passions and has big ambitions? So I started looking at different ways that I could kind of propel myself forward in terms of my love for like business. I grew up with a dad who was an entrepreneur, so I always was doing stuff with him in terms of attending trade shows. I knew I loved marketing from a very young age, of knowing that I love creativity, creating ideas, love events. I love engaging with people. So then I started getting involved with like student council. I started getting involved with DECA. So finding ways during high school to get involved kind of from like a different side of things, but would really kind of give me that level up in going into university and getting involved there. And same thing with Ryerson. Obviously I wasn't going to be joining a sports team. So how could I join different clubs? How could I get more involved with my program? How could I volunteer with people who I knew in Toronto? Even getting that internship, like that was something that I did for one summer and then just took on the job. And it was by no means easy, but it gave me a mentor and it gave me an opportunity to connect with people in the industry that only helped me kind of get to where I was and even get that role at eSentire.
Yeah, it's funny to hear you talk a little bit about the imposter syndrome, because when knowing you now, we've worked together for 2 years, a little bit longer actually, two and a half. And like I think of you as someone that is such an avid learner, but also has so much hustle and drive. And so I think it's easy for me to attribute that back to sport, but hearing you talk about your background and what you must have seen with your parents and how your dad was entrepreneurial and like just that balance, I think would really inspire a lot of the hustle that I get to see every single day. And it's funny, when you look at, I think a job description is like a blessing and a curse, because yes, you want to find somebody, you have certain requirements you're looking for, but to hear you go through that experience where you almost didn't apply because you're thinking about, do I have enough, years of experience? I'm someone that hires off of passion. I would much rather have someone be coachable, be, engaging, be passionate about, the opportunity ahead. Was it just the referral? Was it that you knew someone who was here? Like, what was it about the role at eSentire that made you go, I want to change fields. I want to get into cyber. I'm willing to take a shot on this company?
I think the referral was huge, more so because I had that connection.
Yeah.
But I think when I looked into security and I looked into technology, like being based in Waterloo is a huge tech city, and growing up in that environment of knowing you see the BlackBerries, you see Google in Waterloo, knowing that that's a really big and hot space, and there's so many opportunities for someone who's in the creative sector to join a tech industry rather than a consumer brand. So that was kind of one thing I knew, okay, if I want to really be able to propel my career forward, coming from a non-technical role, a non-technical university background, taking a chance on something like security or tech is really the right place to be. And you have people around you who, I'm always working with people who have different areas and are more technical than me, and I'm always learning something from, and I think that was really important for me. And as someone who kind of hustles and grinds, being able to always be learning something new was something that stood out when I applied to eSentire, because there's a lot of roles, I think, where you can be there for a bit, and if you're a learner, you get too comfortable and you get bored. But this was a role I knew that if I joined this company, I would always be busy, I would always be learning, and the growth opportunities are unmatched compared to other companies. So that's kind of why I took a chance on eSentire and been here ever since and love it.
We're happy you did. Shout out to Rob Pittman. Great referral, Rob. In terms of advice for people just like you, and similarly, like I came from a telecommunications background, and getting into cybersecurity after that was a little bit more natural. But when you're someone who's non-technical going into a technical role, maybe give our listeners a little bit of advice, or what have you learned, or what were some of the pitfalls that you experienced? How have you navigated that?
I think it can be difficult because obviously, and I always talk to my friends and family who are in security, and they ask kind of like, what do you do, or what does eSentire do? And when I first started, it was like learning literally a whole new language. Like that's how I put security. If you're not a technical person, when you get into security, kind of learning how security leaders are focused and how they do their job, and even how our business operates, it just takes a whole different learning curve. So it's something that I think I went into it knowing that you have to give yourself time to learn everything. You can't be expected to be an expert after like 1 month. It probably took me a full year to be like fully confident with knowing what the terms mean, knowing what security leaders are going through. So just giving yourself that time. And I think the biggest thing too is like knowing that you can learn and there are resources open to you. I had a great mentor, Erin Stevenson, who encouraged me early on to go and set up coffee chats with people in different areas of the business and kind of learn what they do. And they were great because they gave me resources. Okay, you can take this, you can learn from it, here's basics. And you're also too, you're not expected to be an expert. Like I'm not expected to have the same level of like a SOC analyst. But it's something that I think the more you know, the more it can propel you forward. And also too, it's just the experience and it comes with time. Like I'm even looking at now of like how many ideas I have related to marketing like now rather than I had when I started, just because you gain that experience. So I think any non-technical people can enter into this industry. And it doesn't even mean it has to be marketing, but you even hear about the SOC analyst, how someone maybe started and they had a completely different career path. But as long as you're dedicated to learning and taking the time, you can get to that spot, and they don't expect you to have that. So I think that's the neat thing about security, is there's so many people who come from different walks of life, but we're now kind of all in this spot, and it's truly just kind of taking that extra step and taking that learning curve, and kind of just, I guess, embracing it rather than using it to be kind of worried or nervous if you're going to be enough.
Well, I think, that last thing you just said, like worried if you're going to be enough. I feel like if you're coming into a new field, you're doing it for a reason. You're bringing a level of skill, a level of expertise, no matter, whether it's from university, whether it's from individual courses, whether it's just your own personal beliefs, ideas. And so, credit to you as a marketer for being able to navigate that, because I think as you get comfortable with content, with service, with, value propositions, all that stuff, you're doing it and putting your own lens on our security service, on our solution, on how we engage with customers. But if you can keep the core in mind of what you're good at and what you're trying to communicate and who you're talking to, and to do it with empathy and personality, like that comes through. And it's funny, I was trying, as you were chatting, I was thinking, you brought up the SOC analyst. And I recently posted, there's one of our SOC analysts, who's one of our top analysts, was a butcher.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I can make like the full analogy back to like, okay, well, what is it about being a butcher that really lands you
having
as
that
a SOC
connection?
analyst?
Yeah.
And then I found out, separate from that, because I posted about the butcher, there's also a carpenter. And so, I think in those scenarios, you can come from so many different backgrounds, but think critically.
Yeah.
Solve a problem a particular way. Be curious. Really be willing to learn. And so, for the avid learners out there, the people that are going like, I'm not happy in my current profession, or I'm feeling unsettled, there's got to be, something more dynamic out there. Cyber is definitely a place that will welcome you, and give you 100%. A ton of learning opportunity.
And I think it's one of those things that I always truly say, and even it's at eSentire, and even when I was in school, and people would kind of be like, well, how did you get to where you are? How did you get that career? And I said, it's really kind of, it's what you make it, and it's what you put that out there to be. You can kind of just work a job and not put in a lot of work, and put in the 9 to 5 hours and hide in your cubicle. But what makes the difference is being someone who gets to know someone in the company, is going to different events, is attending webinars, is doing that learning that goes beyond the scope of the work, and even taking advantage of groups or networking. Like that's how you get ahead through all of those little things, and that's how you make a difference. And it can seem like a lot of work, I think, to front load, but it ends up paying off in the end. It really makes your job and makes your career that much more, I guess, enriching, I would say.
Well, I agree with you, because it sounds like a lot of work, and it is, but you're investing in yourself too. Yeah. And like we as a company, as eSentire, as an employer, like we obviously benefit because we see you grow, and we see like what you're doing and how you're a brand ambassador for us. Yeah. You're an extension of who eSentire is in various communities, including in the legal community. But you're putting in hours and time to build your own expertise and to invest in yourself. And I feel like as a young professional, like there's no better thing that you can do to just push yourself out there. How do you, or what advice would you give to young professionals that maybe don't feel as comfortable being extroverted? Yeah. Do you consider yourself to be an extrovert? So maybe should be the first question.
It's funny. That's like, so the one thing is I'm actually more of an extroverted introvert. So I'm someone who grew up, I was so shy growing up. I was like the kid in school who was
I cannot picture
in
that
the
for
corner.
You.
My mom literally has videos of me at gymnastics standing in the middle and not wanting to run because I was just painfully shy. Okay. So I knew from a bit too, and kind of reading people would always kind of say, oh, shy people have it harder. If you're introverted, it's more difficult for you. And I read a really interesting book a couple years ago, and it was about introverts, and I forget what the name of it is, but just talking about how kind of as an introvert, you have your own superpowers. And just because I'm introverted doesn't mean I'm still the shy person in the corner, but it's just knowing that you have like different needs in terms of recharging, and maybe you have to push yourself in some situations to be that extroverted person. But I think regardless if you're an introverted person, you just have to know, and even if it is difficult, that you do have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. If you have a great idea, you need to kind of be able to get over that barrier and to be comfortable in saying, you know what, I'm going to kind of step up. I'm going to voice my opinion. Because I always think the worst thing that can happen is if you voice an idea, the worst thing is someone says, no, it's not a fit, but at least you tried. If you just keep it in, no one's going to know your ideas. No one's going to know what you're doing behind the scenes. So as uncomfortable as it is sometimes to kind of have to, I guess, push yourself out of your comfort zone and be that person who's in front of like an audience or giving a presentation, it will pay off in the end. And it's kind of just something where it's like, it just takes time and it takes repetition. But if you just sit back and you don't say anything or you don't do anything, you'll never get to that point. And there's some of the brightest minds and some of the people with the best ideas, but that's the biggest barrier to them kind of being able to share their ideas and share their thoughts. So I think too, it's like, as you become a leader, and I'm sure you're aware, it's just kind of knowing that there will be people with those personalities, but also knowing too, to just encourage them that everyone's here to be kind of supportive. Everyone's here to listen. There's no judgment. Like, there's no bad ideas, as that one quote is. Like, there's always, you're learning from them. It might not be the right idea at the right time, but it's better to share it. So that's probably my advice.
No, that's really good advice, because you're right. You know, as a leader, it's the small things of, you know, at the end of a call, if someone hasn't spoken up, does anyone have anything else they want to share? Do you have any other feedback? Is there, like, giving people that outlet? They might not take it every time, but then give them the feedback. Like, I want to hear what you have to say. I want you to share your perspective, because it's really, really hard if you're someone that has incredible ideas or thoughts and you're not sharing it. At some point, you know, the people around you are going to go, okay, maybe they're not invested. Maybe they're not, you know, engaging the same way. And, you know, it is on the leaders around them to try and draw that out and make sure they're getting the most out of their people. But interesting. So you can be an introvert.
Yeah, I've grown out of it. Like, it was one of those things, I think, for a bit where I was really introverted. And then honestly, I think leaving high school and going to university, that was the pivotal moment that it was like, okay, like, I need to just lean into being uncomfortable. And I think it was interesting too, because I think in high school for a bit, I doubted, because of that introversion, my abilities of like what I was capable of doing, or even like getting an award. Like, high school was the first time that I was ever really recognized with an academic award. And it was kind of that moment where I was like, oh my goodness, I am capable of doing those things. Yeah. It doesn't mean you need to be the loudest person in the room to be able to get recognized or to be able to do important things. So I think that was kind of, I think people getting rewarded in somehow, or being kind of recognized and being seen, is sometimes that thing that pushes you to go and do things that you didn't think you were capable of doing before. Yeah.
Well, that's where, you know, you see the importance of mentorship and frankly, just being kind to the people around you. Because if you get a thank you, if you get an acknowledgement for your efforts, like, that can really start to catapult somebody to realize that there's some value to their thoughts, 100%. Their ideas, what they're doing. Well, let's hit you with some quick questions. Yeah. So, can you give us a book you would recommend?
I'd say my favorite book that's more of like a business style book is Everyone Writes by Anne Handley. Okay. And it was a book it's probably like this big. It's a thick book, but it tells you kind of everything you need to know about writing. And it's not just the classic academic writing.
It's not like, ChatGPT.
It's not ChatGPT. Okay. It's telling you how to write for social media, how to write for web. And I think it's a great book. It doesn't, even if you're not a marketing person and you're someone who just writes for anything, it's one of those kind of just nice books to have on your desk or to have some inspiration. So that was a one that I like right now, kind of with that age of AI. Like, how do you still keep that brain going?
How do you combine the two?
How
do you make it a superpower? Yeah. Well, it's fair, because I think, you know, back to your earlier point on making sure that you have a voice and share your opinion, how you communicate, not only how you write, but how you verbalize your opinion really, really matters. So making sure that you have kind of that foundation of different forms of communication and having a style that you start to put out is really important, especially as a marketer.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have a quote that you love?
A quote? I actually have the quote on my phone, because I was like, I need to pull this up so I actually can remember. So one of my favorite woman in business is Sarah Blakely, who I love from Spanx. So one of my favorite quotes is, don't be intimidated by what you don't know, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier of being in security and even being in business. Like, there's still areas or when you get into it and you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is overwhelming. Say we were launching a new service or we're exploring a different industry and it's like, okay, I know nothing about this. That can be so intimidating, but it's something that you can kind of just, I guess, channel that nervousness and like, you'll be able to kind of get through it, and to not just be intimidated by the fact that you don't know it. So, yeah.
I love the Sarah Blakely story too. Like, just what she started from, you know, an apartment and what she has grown her business into is absolutely phenomenal.
It's amazing.
And so, yeah, I think that's a great example. It's a good one. You've mentioned a few defining moments already, but has there been one in your career so far that you would say stands out?
I would say probably in my career, there's been a couple different defining moments. I would say my probably biggest defining moment, I would say, has happened at eSentire. Like, I'm still relatively young. I'm still pretty new in my career. But I think back to my first year ever, or first summer, I was at ILTACON, and it was the first event I got sent on, or second event by myself. And I remember my manager, Fran, was like, "Are you sure you want to go on this event? Like, we need someone to go." And I was like, "Honestly, I have this. Like, I'll try it. It's all good." So I got sent down on my own. And I remember I got there.
Give the context. Where did you go?
I went to National Harbor in Maryland. It was my first ever conference solo. I'd done Black Hat 2 weeks prior, and I was like, okay, I've got this. Like, this is fine. I get there, and it's like everything that could go wrong with the booth setup could possibly went wrong. No one knew where the electrical was. There was just everything. It was like one after the other, and I remember being on a phone call with Fran and Matthew on the weekend being like, yep, and this has gone wrong, and the panels don't align. And it was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like, what did I get myself into? And then there was issue with swag, but it was one thing where there was so many challenges that came up, but I got through all of those challenges, and I met so many of our phenomenal customers, specifically in the legal industry, which kind of, I guess, that event was really the one that propelled me forward and being like, you know what, I love when I do events, and I love doing my role when I get to meet our customers, I get to meet our prospects, I get to meet partners. Like, having that face-to-face interaction is so invaluable. So that was kind of the pivotal moment where I realized, you know what, I had a really tough go at the beginning of the conference, but we got through it. We had an amazing conference. I got to meet so many incredible people. And what was something that was challenging going into it turned out to be a really, really great event. So from that moment on, that's when I started to take more events. And then I'd say RSA last year was probably another pivotal moment of taking on like a beast of an event. Like RSA, for those who aren't in the security industry, like that is like the big event of the year that like takes so much work to go into RSA. So kind of being able to get through that event and having it a success was something that felt good. So those were kind of some pivotal, like there's more pivotal moments, but those kind of stand out to me of my time at eSentire. So,
well, they're big growth opportunities as you kind of think about the trust and the responsibility that goes into them, the planning, because, you know, there's no just one singular event experience. It's all part of an integrated campaign. It's a bigger program that you're trying to strategize around and have, you know, a positive outcome for the business on. I really like what you said about meeting customers and prospects and having that face time, because one of the most important things I think as a marketer in general is to have empathy and understanding for who you're speaking with and like who you're trying to deliver an outcome for. And so getting that in-person FaceTime, listening in on deal calls and opportunities, whether you do it live or you do like a gong call afterwards, being part of the sales and partner process is really, really important, because you've got to learn a little bit. You've got to walk the walk of how hard that is, how much trust has to be built. And so I'm glad you got that experience, you know, on the floor and with a specific vertical that means so much to us, because it's definitely made a difference in your understanding and the work that you do. And I just think that's so important for marketers to get that.
I think it's one of those things too, where sometimes people forget about like the importance of just like knowing that like your customer and your prospects and your partners, like those are real people. And it's so important to develop relationships that aren't just the core of like trying to sell something or trying to just have that business relationship. It's also caring about that there's a whole other person that we're taking care of. And I think that's why I love security, because it's one thing that we're helping people, but then also even just hearing from people like, you help me to relax, or you help me to take this stress off of my plate over a weekend and I can go on a vacation and relax. So I think it's also too taking that a step farther and like actually caring about the relationships of your customers and your partners and prospects, and caring about what they're doing beyond the business and what's going on in their lives. And I think that that's something that makes us so different at eSentire, because we just care so much about the people around us and maintaining those relationships. And that's what makes things great. And I think going to those events and seeing people that you've seen like at ILTACON in a previous year at an RSA, and being able to run up to them and be like, oh my gosh, how are things like going? How's your company doing? I saw you posted this on LinkedIn, or I saw you were at this event. Like those are the interactions that make a difference. Right. And that's, I think, the one thing that I love that we do in our job is just to kind of be able to have those special moments with our customers and our prospects and our partners, and especially to be able to kind of show those prospective customers, like this is the level of service and kind of how much care we give into our customers, of taking it kind of that step further.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because as we think about being a non-technical person, I feel like I'm giving you this like title and sticking you over here in this non-technical corner, working in a very technical field. What you said is so true. everyone's just a person. Everyone's just trying their best to deliver on behalf of our customers. But if you can build that camaraderie, build that sense of empathy and understanding, it doesn't matter how technical you are. People are willing to lean in and help and learn and just be kind of in it together a little bit more.
Yeah,
so.
And we have great customers. Like I think back to how many like customers who are truly advocates for the brand, and they go above and beyond for us every day, and they're willing to help. And I think that all comes back to the relationships. It comes back to caring deeply about a person just beyond the business facing value of that relationship, like knowing that we have your back as a business, but we also have your back personally. And that's something that I love that we do here.
Well, I'm glad we sent you to ILTACON, because that spearheaded a whole lot in terms of your partnership with ILTA overall, your work in growth marketing, and kind of your transition into that role. And I think, of course, a little bit about this new award. So maybe tell us a bit about what you do with ILTA today. And it can be with eSentire or even on your own as a marketing contributor.
So I've been going to ILTACON, I guess. I've been to ILTACON twice now. I met one of our now customers, Brian, at the first ever ILTACON. And he was the one who kind of sparked my interest this past year and said, hey, our ILTA committee or ILTACON committee is hiring on the security team. I think you'd be a great fit. You should consider applying. So that was kind of the thing that sparked my interest in applying this year. So I applied to the ILTACON planning committee. So I'm planning 2 of the security sessions this year, which is really interesting because it's kind of the first time ever that I'm taking a non-vendor approach to security and doing something kind of on my own and still working with different vendors and different legal customers. So I'm working on that planning committee this year. And then I'm also working on ILTACON and attending ILTA Evolve in 2 weeks. So it's been great because that involvement in ILTA, it's not just ILTACON, but it's also looking at kind of how we can get involved with that industry in general and how we can get further involved with ILTA as a whole. And I know we have great partners like Conversant, who's someone who really kind of sparked my interest last year when I attended ILTACON, and how to continue to get involved with the legal community. So I kind of have a 2-tier approach where I help with eSentire from more of like the business partner side. And then I also help ILTA kind of plan those sessions and bring in some of my security expertise and what I'm seeing from more of like a content and research side into helping to plan the conference. So it's kind of a 2-tier fold into how I got into ILTA now. But it's been great, and they have so many kind of wonderful people who work for the conference, and even our customers are highly involved there. So
Well, it's the perfect example for me of, again, finding a way to extend all of your interests. So not only you've got the event planning side of things, you've got the content and thought leadership side of things, you've definitely got the people side of things, but you're also doing it in a vertical that's incredibly important to eSentire in the legal space, but one that you were also interested in and passionate in. So like all of that kind of comes naturally. And I feel like it's a really good example of how you can continue to pursue passions in a profession, in a particular role that you might find yourself in. So
and I think it's like when you find that industry that you have an interest in, like we work in so many different industry spaces, and I think finding one that you're passionate about or has interest, like I even found when I learned about like the bootloader malware and how that affects law firms, like that's something that's so interesting, and kind of to be able to even learn more about that and learn how to speak to that, like it just takes that a step further. So that was kind of why I really wanted to lean into legal, is because of my background, and okay, maybe I want to get involved with legal as a lawyer. That didn't work out, but how can I still kind of have a knack for that industry while kind of working in that marketing and cybersecurity role?
No, that's amazing. And so this transitioned to you obviously being recognized as a young professional to watch by ILTA. So congratulations again. What's the next step with this award? What happens and what should we expect from it?
Yeah, so the award ceremony is taking place in North Carolina in 2 weeks at the ILTA Evolve conference. So basically each year ILTA recognizes a group of young professionals under 40 who kind of exemplify all of ILTA's kind of goals or what they stand by, and then are also highly involved in the legal tech space. So there's a list of, I forget how many different participants kind of got recognized across either the business partner or they're part of a law firm directly. So they'll be holding that award, and then there's been kind of some, I guess, news that's been going on about the award, which is exciting to see. So yeah, I think it's one of those things that it's great to kind of see or get, I guess, rewarded for my involvement with the legal sector. And then I think it's just maybe a reminder for us at eSentire even of the different awards that we can apply to next year as well, and continue to kind of propel forward and get recognized. So yeah, I'm excited to be in North Carolina, and excited to attend that conference as well. So
nice. Okay, as we look to wrap this up, I'm going to ask for some closing comments and advice. So we've talked a lot about marketing professionals in the cyberspace, non-technical people in the cyberspace. What advice would you give to anyone on the fence right now considering, should I make the move into cybersecurity, or to any technical role for that matter, or technical field? What advice would you give to a young professional listening here?
I would say like my biggest advice is to just do it and to not be afraid of what people are going to, I guess, think of you trying. I think the biggest thing that always holds people back is fear, the fear of getting rejected or the fear of you apply for a job and you don't get it. But you just have to know that that's naturally, like, that's going to happen with kind of transitioning to something that makes you feel uncomfortable. So really kind of taking advantage of all opportunities that you have, reaching out to people, networking, learning. There's so many free resources that you have at your disposal, and so many people who are willing to kind of help you, especially in cybersecurity. We're always looking, there's like a major skills gap in security. So people want to help you get that role. You just have to put in that work and kind of know that, like, yes, there'll be some challenges and yes, you might get rejected, but as long as you try your best and you try hard, like, that will pay off and it's worth it. So that would be my advice.
Amazing. Well, Kristin, thank you. Thank you for taking some time to give us a glimpse into your journey. And congratulations again. It's awesome that you're here at eSentire and a part of our team. And we are thrilled that you are one of ILTA's young professionals to watch.
Thank you.
Congrats.
I really appreciate it.